Imagine a man who ruled with absolute terror. A man who started the deadliest war in human history and ordered the murder of more than 6 million Jewish people. By April 1945, that same man was trapped like an animal. He was hiding 50 feet beneath the earth in a concrete bunker. At 3:30 p.m. on April 30th, 1945, a sharp gunshot echoed through the cold underground walls. Adolf Hitler was dead. He had ended his own life. But the story of his final 24 hours is filled with panic, strange decisions, and complete desperation. He did not die alone. He destroyed everything and everyone he claimed to love before pulling the trigger. This is the exact step-by-step history of what happened inside that concrete grave. The secret world of the Führer bunker. To understand his last day, we must look at where Hitler was living. He moved into the Führer bunker in Berlin on January 16, 1945. It was a massive underground complex built under the Reich Chancellery Garden. The roof was made of solid concrete, 10 feet thick. It was built to withstand the heaviest bombs. Inside, the air was stale and smelled of diesel fuel from the generators. The corridors were narrow and loud with the sound of military radios. Overhead, the ground shook constantly. Soviet artillery was blasting the streets of Berlin above them into dust. By late April, Hitler was a broken man, both physically and mentally. Witnesses like his secretary, Traudl Jung, noticed a massive change. His left hand trembled severely because of worsening Parkinson's disease. His back was permanently bent into a stoop. He dragged his right foot when he walked through the narrow hallways. He was also taking many experimental drugs and stress medicines from his personal doctor. These drugs completely ruined his health and his ability to think clearly. On April 22nd, just 8 days before his death, Hitler suffered a total nervous breakdown during a military meeting. He found out that his generals had disobeyed his orders to launch a counterattack. Hitler flew into a wild rage. He screamed that his generals were traitors and cowards. For the very first time, he openly screamed, "The war is lost." He announced to everyone in the room that he would stay in Berlin to the end and shoot himself. April 29th, 3 p.m. The innocent victims. Our 24-hour countdown begins on the afternoon of April 29th. Hitler was terrified that the Russians would capture him alive. He was also terrified that his suicide supplies would fail. He had received a batch of brass cyanide capsules from his SS guards, but he did not trust them. He wondered if the poison was fake. To test the poison, Hitler chose his favorite German shepherd dog, Blondie. Hitler loved this dog deeply. He had raised her from a puppy and often treated her better than the human beings around him. Hitler walked up to Blondie and opened her jaws with his strong hands. His personal dog handler forced a cyanide capsule into her mouth. The poison worked instantly. Blondie dropped to the concrete floor and died from severe poisoning. Hitler's face remained cold and emotionless. But Blondie was not the only dog. Hitler also owned another dog named Wolf and 4 small puppies. Hitler did not want his dogs to suffer or be tortured by the advancing Soviet army. He also did not want them to live without him. He ordered his dog handler to take Wolf and the 4 puppies up to the ruined Chancellery Garden. There, under the smoky Berlin sky, the handler shot all 5 dogs. They buried the bodies in a bomb crater in the garden. This was the spot where Hitler used to play with them. April 29th, 4 p.m. The news of Mussolini's fate. Shortly after killing his dogs, Hitler received a shocking piece of news from Italy. His close ally, the Italian dictator Mussolini, had been captured by Italian fighters. Mussolini and his young mistress, Clara Petacci, were executed by a firing squad. But it was what happened after their death that truly horrified Hitler. The angry crowds took Mussolini's body to a gas station in Milan. They beat his corpse, threw mud at it, and hung it upside down from meat hooks for the public to mock. When Hitler read this report, his fear grew intensely. He became obsessed with one thought: he could never let the Russians capture his body. He screamed to his officers that he would never allow his corpse to be put in an enemy museum or displayed for crowds to laugh at. He immediately called his SS helper, Otto Gunsche. He made Gunsche give a holy oath. The oath was simple: "You must promise to burn my body completely the moment I die." April 29th, midnight. The surreal wedding. As the Russian army advanced closer, the mood inside the bunker became completely bizarre. While Soviet shells exploded overhead, 33-year-old Eva Braun was inside her bedroom getting ready for a wedding. Eva had loved Hitler since she was 15. For 16 years, Hitler hid her from the German public. He believed being unmarried made him more attractive to the public. They lived secretly, maintaining separate bedrooms that were secretly connected by a private bathroom hallway. He loved her in his own strange way. He called her daily during the war and worried if she was late. But he never married her because he felt his political life left him no time for a family. Furthermore, medical records showed that Hitler's extreme drug use and medical issues had made him unable to have children. But now, with death only hours away, Hitler decided to reward Eva for her total loyalty. Just after midnight on April 29th, a local city official named Walter Wagner was brought into the bunker's map room. Under German law, the couple signed papers swearing they were of pure descent. Eva began to sign her last name as Braun, but stopped, crossed it out, and signed it as Eva Hitler. After the quick ceremony, they held a small wedding breakfast with champagne. Hitler left the party for a few minutes and took his secretary Traudl Jung into a separate room. There, he dictated his final political will and testament. In this document, he fired his top generals, accused them of treason, and officially announced his upcoming suicide. April 30th, 2:30 a.m. The final party. After writing his will, Hitler held a strange farewell gathering. He invited the bunker's doctors, nurses, and secretaries to the corridor. Everyone had been drinking heavily to cope with the fear of the Russian invasion. Hitler walked down the line of his staff. He shook hands with about 20 people and thanked them for serving Germany. He was heavily intoxicated and spoke openly about his suicide plan. He told the staff that he and Eva would die together at the exact same moment. To ensure success, he altered his suicide plan. He decided they would take 2 pistols and 2 cyanide capsules into their room. If a gun jammed or a capsule failed, they would have an immediate backup. The drinking party lasted until 4 a.m. For the first time in their lives, Hitler and Eva walked into the same bedroom together as husband and wife to spend their final hours. April 30th, 6 a.m. The reality of defeat. The morning of April 30th brought total chaos. At 6 a.m., General Helmuth Weidling, the commander defending Berlin, sent a terrifying radio message. He reported that Russian infantry squads had successfully captured the Reichstag. The Reichstag was the historic heart of German politics. It was located less than 500 meters from Hitler's bunker doors. At 12:30 p.m., General Weidling entered the bunker in person. He told Hitler directly that his troops would completely run out of ammunition by that night. The fighting in Berlin was officially over. Hearing this, Hitler became frozen like a block of ice. His face lost all color. He realized he had less than 3 hours before Russian soldiers blew open his bunker doors. He turned to his aides and said, "It is finished. Goodbye." He then gave his final order to his SS helper, Heinz Linge. "Go find 200 liters of petrol immediately and bring it up to the garden." Finding petrol in a completely destroyed Berlin was almost impossible. SS guards had to creep out into underground garages and drain the fuel tanks of damaged vehicles while artillery shells exploded around them. April 30th, 1 p.m. The last meal. At 1 p.m., Hitler sat down at the dining table for his last meal. He was a strict vegetarian and teetotaler, meaning he never drank alcohol. He quietly ate a simple plate of spaghetti and light salad. He ate completely alone. His guards were too stressed to eat, and Eva Braun remained locked in her room. Eva was using her final moments to dress up. She chose a beautiful silk black dress adorned with white roses because it was Hitler's favorite outfit. She wanted to look perfect when she died. At 2:30 p.m., Hitler and Eva emerged from their rooms together. They walked out to say a final goodbye to the inner circle, including the Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. Eva hugged Traudl Jung and handed her a valuable fur coat, saying, "Take this as a memory. I always liked well-dressed women." Hitler shook hands silently, turned around, and led Eva into his private sitting room. They locked the heavy steel door behind them. April 30th, 3:30 p.m. The gunshot. Outside the locked door, the silence in the bunker corridor was deafening. Officers, secretaries, and guards stood perfectly still, watching the clock. At exactly 3:30 p.m., a loud, sharp gunshot cracked through the air. The guards froze. For 10 long minutes, nobody dared to open the door. At 3:40 p.m., Hitler's valet, Heinz Linge, and Martin Bormann gently pushed the door open. A strong smell of gunpowder and burnt almonds filled the room. The scent of burnt almonds is a classic sign of hydrogen cyanide gas. They saw 2 bodies sitting side by side on a small sofa. Hitler was on the right side. He had shot himself through his right temple with his Walther pistol. Blood was pouring down his face and dripping onto the carpet. Eva was sitting to his left. She had no blood on her. She had swallowed a cyanide capsule, and her body was slumped over quietly. April 30th, 3:50 p.m. The cremation in the garden. Following Hitler's strict instructions, his special guards quickly wrapped Hitler's bloody head in a gray blanket to hide the wounds. They lifted the bodies and carried them up the narrow emergency stairs into the open air of the Chancellery garden. The scene outside was apocalyptic. Russian artillery was actively raining down on the garden, tearing up the trees and soil. The guards placed the 2 bodies side by side in a small, shallow depression in the ground near the bunker exit. They poured the 200 liters of collected petrol over the corpses. Heinz Linge ignited a rag, set it on fire, and threw it onto the gasoline. A massive ball of fire erupted into the sky. The remaining officers stood at the top of the bunker stairs, raised their arms in a final Nazi salute, and quickly ran back underground to escape the falling bombs. Because of the freezing wind and the poor quality of the fuel, the bodies did not burn easily. Guards had to repeatedly run outside into the gunfire to pour more petrol onto the fire. The bodies burned for several hours. By midnight, most of the flesh had turned to ash, but parts of Hitler's blackened bones were still completely visible. The guards took shovels, pushed the remaining charred bones into a nearby bomb crater, and covered them with fresh soil. The aftermath, the end of the Reich. Just a few days later, Soviet troops captured the ruined bunker. They began digging up the garden looking for Hitler. Soviet agents eventually discovered the shallow bomb crater. Inside, they found dental bridges and fragments of a jawbone. They tracked down Hitler's dentist's assistant, who confirmed the dental work matched Hitler's exact records. The man who caused the deaths of tens of millions of people across Europe ended his life in total darkness, buried next to his dogs in a pile of ash. His dream of a global empire lasted only 12 years, ending in total ruin.